So, now we are live.
Yeah.
Annemiek van Helsingden. Yeah. I'm very excited to talk to you today since you are a trainer of soul-based coaching. So I learned from you throughout the whole of last year, 2018, in the training of InWalk to become a soul-based coach. So this has been very inspirational to me. And you're also the founder of the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching.
Yes, and I'm really happy that we get to talk today, Erika. I so love the work that you're bringing forward in the world. It is so deeply you, that is just gorgeous to witness every step that you take.
Well, thank you, Annemiek. The same here, since you are like walking some steps beforehand to show us what it is, soul-based coaching. Would you like to tell us a bit what is that for you?
Oh, such an easy question, huh? Oh, the answer changes every day, I think. But in essence, soul-based coaching is a way of helping people connect with their deepest wisdom, their soul wisdom. And it helps people to tap into that wisdom in a way that it can generate the changes and the healing that they are looking for really easily. And in a way, a little bit magically as well, because our logical minds can't always quite understand what's happening. But the effect is so clearly happening that, the logical mind just gives up at some point and starts to co-create with that deeper knowing, which is just beautiful, because then people can bring everything that they are and everything, all the potential that they hold, they can then actually start bringing that out into the world.
Yeah. And for me, the biggest transformation, for example, happens through the embodied metaphor. During the training of becoming a soul-based coach, what happened is that in our sessions, metaphors developed, which I started to draw. So it started with a seed in my heart, which has been like closed up. And then it developed in the seed popping up, and the flowers sprang out of the seed around the heart space. And then it turned into a tree. And the tree has grown roots and then branches. And then it came like that the 3 norns took place at the roots of this tree. And the magic really happened because I lived these metaphors.
Yeah.
Which are the answers from the soul, which you talked about. So this is not something logical to grasp. It's really like being part of this journey, like in a fairy tale. Like I actually lived in those metaphors, and up until the end, when now everything for me is like in the back, this picture, everything with the roots and wings, like living this life as this strong, tall tree. And this is the power of embodied metaphors.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to watch, because when you speak about it, you can just see how deeply that affects you, how deeply these metaphors are a part of you, and how deeply they've shown you what your life is all about, right? And that's just when people that are watching, for you, it will not be a tree, right? For anybody watching, it won't be a tree, probably, or though it might. But that's one of the core things, is that everybody holds their own truth of this. And as you say, in the training, you spend a lot of time, practicing coaching skills, but also spend a lot of time being a client. And that's where you have made this journey through your metaphors. And I have to say, I remember so many of the steps of that journey for you, because there's something about the way that unfolding happens that is, it touches on something really sacred. At least that's the way that I look at it. But it's also the way that it feels when you're working with a client in this way, when you can just see that piece by piece, somebody, you in this instance, is aligning more and more and more with their own truth. And that's just such a beautiful journey of becoming. That goes way beyond the, I want to have more, believe in myself, for example. And then, like regular coaching will stay at the surface of that. But when we start to work with these metaphors, we start to go really, really deeply into what makes you essentially you, without it being a hard process, right? It's very playful and magical. And at the same time, you're working on these real questions and real life issues. And it's just gorgeous to have seen your tree developing, and it just makes so much sense with who you are and what you value most in life, and what you're here to do. And it's so lovely to see that picture behind you of the tree with the roots and the wings. I don't know if you remember the first email exchange we ever had. It already was about roots and wings, and it just kind of locked you in into this this beautiful exploration of you.
Yes, that's beautiful. And it's like this makes it so alive, this inner life of the soul, which speaks to us in those metaphors and images. And I cannot thank you enough to be part of this journey of walking each other home, our souls. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Erika. It's such a joy to do that with you. Yeah.
And we mentioned briefly, it's also about asking questions.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us more? What is this magic and power of the clean language?
Yeah, well, as a coach, the main tools that you have are your ability to hold space, which is another important part of soul-based coaching, and then the quality of the questions that you ask. And there's a lot of different questions in the world. There's a lot of different questions that coaches use, but in soul-based coaching, we have chosen to use clean language questions because they are very effective and very powerful in what they do. They were developed by David Grove in the 1980s. David was a psychotherapist from New Zealand who was working with trauma victims. And he noticed that the closer his clients got to talking about their trauma or the situation, the things that had happened to them, the more they started to speak in metaphor. And he was really curious about why was that happening. And I was thinking, so what if I can see that as a normal, healthy thing to happen for the client system? How can I honor that? So that's how we started to experiment with questions that would leave the question in their experience and not interfere with it. So there's a lot of questions that when we ask them, we interfere as coaches. We add meaning. We interpret in different ways. So the clean language questions kind of take all of that away because they can only lead a client inwards to their own experience and to their own truth. So to give you an example, a clean language question that we would use is, and what kind of tree is your tree, Erika? And Erika will have an answer to that question, which is a couple of pages long by now. I mean, no, she knows a lot about her own tree. But by asking her about her tree, I make sure that even though I might have ideas about what that tree looks like, I can't actually put them in the conversation. So we are working with our clients' literal words because that's the most direct way in to their knowing. And they're called clean questions because they're designed to keep as much assumption and interference out from a coach's perspective. And that is something really, really interesting, because it actually never happens in real life. You'd be surprised. I used to be working as a coach long before I was using any of these questions. And I always thought I was very, both very intuitive and very responsible. So I was very convinced that I wasn't leading my clients. I was very convinced that I was not interfering with their experience. But it wasn't until I started using these questions that I realized the degree of interference that is possible in normal life. So these questions are very powerful. And when we start to use them on metaphors, like you just talked about, like that brings us really quickly, really deeply to our clients' knowing and our clients' experience. And these metaphors, then, they kind of form the key for the changes that want to happen. Yeah. That's kind of a nutshell.
Yeah, it's obviously just scratching the surface. But just by this question, when you ask what kind of a tree is your tree, Erika, I felt, for example, straight away like I was smiling, and I was immediately thinking about my tree, which I mentioned at the beginning, which has been part of my soul journey, like for nearly a year now. So I've got this whole stories inside myself, and I can tap in into my soul's imagination straight away. And I think it's also so interesting, like you said at the beginning, it's a co-creative process, which is for me such a sacred thing, right? Because co-creation, before we start thinking about co-creating with other people from the outside world, for me, this is exactly that. It's a co-creation with the soul inside. Because through this question, what kind of a tree, I immediately was like tapping into, that's how it feels like. Also, my tree is there. Like I'm inside. I'm inside my own imagination, my own like soul's world. And this is, I think, is the co-creation is first of all with our own soul, or like the higher self, or the source. There are so many ways to describe it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that you're using that word. There is this deep sense of, I think everybody knows that sense of, sometimes you find yourself, sometimes it's through meditation, or it's because you've been doing a dance practice or whatever, or a walk in the forest. But everybody has that experience, that sometimes you just fall into this deeper knowing inside of you.
Yes.
And that there is that there is information there for you, there's wisdom there for you, that is from a very different quality than the information that comes from your everyday mind. And I think this process really helps people to connect with that deeper knowing in a very rich way, because there's so much information stored. And for you, Erika, the tree is like the vessel that holds the information that's important for you. Your tree is your vessel of that exchange. And so everybody has their own symbols, their own metaphors that matter really deeply. And even though it might sound a little bit strange when you're just first hearing about this, when you start to do this work, very quickly you realize that whatever metaphor comes up, and you kind of can't help but hear it coming from your own mouth, that it is something that is deeply meaningful to you. And when you say that, I can feel that tree just for that one question, and I find myself inside of that, my soul's imagination. It's not just that, actually. It's also that you're aligning yourself with the frequency of what that means for you. It is you tap into a world of knowing inside of you, which matters deeply to you, which is very much alive and aligned with who you are here to be. And when you do that, the choice of what will I post on Facebook, or who shall I send an email to right now, or the really practical things, get infused by that frequency. And that's how really practical changes happen too. And it's like you might find, I'm sure you have found that the conversations you've been having over the past year with other people have changed compared to how they were before you started to engage with this part of you. It's like when we start working with people's metaphors, I sometimes say it's like we're helping them connect with like their operating system. It's like the primary layer of why we do the things that we do and the way that we do them. It's like we're starting to pay attention to that, and they start to kind of shift and align in a way that is much more nourishing and helpful and true for our clients. Yeah. You can tell I can talk about this for a long time, which I do in the training program.
Well, I'm glad you do it. Highly, highly interesting.
Mm.
And how does the yin approach relate to soul-based coaching?
Oh, that is such a good question. I think this is I'm becoming more and more and more aware of how essential that piece is for our soul-based coaching work. Of course, I already kind of knew, but I'm learning more and more about it as we're going through the years. In our world, we're living in that young kind of environment where we're kind of taking, we're setting our goal, we're breaking it into pieces, we're taking action, we're wanting to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable. And there's a lot of pushing, like a lot of like that energy of making something happen, even if it's against the current. And in soul-based coaching, what we're trying to do is, not what we're trying to do, what we're doing is we're actually helping people relax into the flow of what is happening and what wants to unfold, because the change that people are looking for has its own momentum inside of them. So that is what we're following. So as coaches, we need to kind of learn to lean back into yin and into the space that we hold too. And we need to be not as addicted to saving people. We need to be able to allow the process its own rhythm and its own pace, which is not to say that it needs to take a long time. It's just that we need to follow the pace of our client rather than trying to push them into some direction. So yin is, it's half of all the qualities that are out there are yin, and we're just not using them nearly enough. We've kind of lost touch with them in our societies, and I find that for people training to become a soul-based coach, this is also a very important part of a personal practice to become more familiar with yin, to become more familiar with the phases of rest, but also chaos, not knowing, the phases of the dark, like the fertile dark, like the seed that you were talking about. The seeds, sprouts without it being in fertile dark soil. So that creative power that births all life, that is yin. So allowing that to speak with us, like to take the lead, that is really powerful. It's much more powerful than trying to push something to make it happen. There's time for pushing, but it's not the way to create.
Yeah. Beautiful. And there's one favorite question. So best coaching is, what would you like to happen with the power of yin?
Yeah. Oh, well, if it were me, we'd make it a compulsory thing in every school for all the kids out there to start with. But yeah, well, I see that it is so important for us, really, for anybody who's called to bring their gifts into the world, to really learn to nourish yourself in that yin energy, and to honor the creative power that's in there, to honor the momentum of the things that want to happen, that I also see that it's incredibly useful for people that are in that stage of wanting to follow their own path in a more easeful way. And even if you don't quite know where your path is taking you, because that's part of walking the path, that we don't get to have the destination written out and kind of the images of the travel brochure kind of presented to us. Walking the path of your calling means that you're on a journey to something which you feel is the right way for you, is like the essential way for you to go. And it requires a lot of trust. And a lot of people are trying to grab and make something happen and are looking for answers in that. And when we start to bring yin and into that equation, that journey can really start to look very different. Mm. That journey can be much more easeful, much more fun, and also much more nourishing. And I wish I'd known this, 7 years ago. I was fighting like crazy to make things happen. And there's no need to fight. There really is no need to fight. But you need to find that connection inside of you, and you need to know how you're being guided in each and every moment. Yeah. And this is really why we started to offer Embrace the Power of Yin, to unlock your calling. And this is like a 7-part self-study course that people can take at their own pace to really start to learn to tap into this deeper power. And there's also an option with extra coaching if that's what people would like. Soul-based coaching, of course, and I'm so happy that you're one of the people that are offering that coaching to anybody who's in the program and wants that support. But this is a really beautiful, I actually struggled calling it a course, but it kind of makes it clear. But it's not about doing. This is an invitation of being. An invitation of being and connecting in and leaning back and tapping into that deeper knowing that is available. And so that's what we're helping people do in this course.
That's wonderful. And I will put up a link where people can sign up to the course.
Yes, yeah.
And when is it going to start, this course?
It is available now. And we've just kick-started it on Monday. And so, you can sign up now. You can go through it at your own pace. And actually, Erika, we haven't talked about this, but I would love to offer your community a special offer for entering. If people want to enter this week, we can give them a little discount code in the comments as well. That means that you don't pay 125 euros for the course, but you pay 79 euros, which is, I think, a really sweet offer.
Oh, it is. Great. So I will put that up as well for the people in the group as a link where they can sign on in this course.
Yeah, gorgeous. And any questions, of course, yeah, come and ask us. Ask Erika, ask myself. I know it's going to be a really yummy way of helping yourself on that journey that you're already on.
Beautiful. Well, I'm very grateful to be on this journey together with you, walking each other back home to ourselves. And thank you very much, Annemiek.
Oh, thank you so much, Erika. It is a joy to speak with you. It's such that thing of walking each other home that touches my heart so deeply. I think that's what we're all here to do. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.